Have you ever wondered how inflation impacts your daily life? Well, let's dive into this mysterious concept that silently shapes our everyday decisions. Inflation, in its simplest form, is the rate at which the general level of prices for goods and services is rising. As these prices go up, the purchasing power of our hard-earned money tends to decrease. In other words, you're getting less bang for your buck over time. This rate of inflation is measured as a percentage, and it's a key indicator that economists and policymakers keep a close eye on. While some inflation is generally seen as a normal part of a healthy economy, if the inflation rate gets too high, it can lead to a decrease in the standard of living as the cost of goods outpaces income growth. Inflation might seem like a distant concept, but it's happening right around us every day. So, what does inflation look like in our daily lives? It's more than just a word you hear on the evening news. It's a force that subtly shapes our spending habits and financial decisions. Let's illustrate this with something as simple as a loaf of bread. Back in the day, say the 1970s, you could walk into a grocery store and pick up a loaf of bread for around 25 cents. Fast forward to today, and you're likely to spend somewhere between $2 to $4 for that same loaf. That's a pretty significant increase, isn't it? But it's not just bread. Consider the cost of a gallon of gas. In the 1970s, you could fill up your car for less than 50 cents a gallon. Now, you'd be lucky to find gas for less than $3 a gallon. And let's not forget about entertainment. A movie ticket that cost less than $2 in the 1970s now costs closer to $15 on average. These are just a few examples, but the story is the same across the board. From groceries to gas to going out, the cost of living has steadily risen over the years. This is inflation in action, the gradual increase in the price of goods and services over time. Now you might be thinking, well, that's all well and good, but wages have gone up too, right? And you'd be correct. Salaries and wages typically increase over time to keep up with inflation. This is known as a cost of living adjustment. However, it's important to note that while wages often rise with inflation, they don't always keep pace. This means that even though you're making more money, you're not necessarily able to buy more. In fact, if your wages don't keep up with inflation, you might even be able to buy less. The dollar in your wallet today might not stretch as far tomorrow. That's inflation at work. Now that we know what inflation is and how it manifests, let's delve into its impact on our lives. Inflation at its core affects the purchasing power of consumers. Think of it this way. You walk into your favorite grocery store with a $100 bill. Today, that $100 might buy you a cart full of groceries. But with inflation, the same $100 next year might only fill up half of that cart. That's because inflation erodes the value of money over time. This erosion doesn't just impact your grocery shopping. It can have far-reaching effects on your savings and investments. Let's say you've tucked away a nice little nest egg for your retirement. Over time, inflation can eat away at the buying power of that nest egg. That means, without proper planning, you might not have as much as you think you do when it's time to retire. Inflation doesn't just erode the value of your savings, it can also impact your investments. Consider a simple savings account with a fixed interest rate. If the inflation rate rises faster than your interest rate, the real value of your savings decreases. This is why financial advisors often suggest investments that can potentially outpace inflation, like stocks or real estate. But it's not all doom and gloom. Understanding inflation can actually help you make smarter financial decisions. For instance, if you know inflation is on the rise, you might decide to invest in assets that typically do well during inflationary periods. Or, you might choose to spend your money now on big-ticket items before prices go up. Inflation can be a tricky beast, but it's one you can tame with knowledge and strategic planning. By understanding how inflation works, and how it impacts your purchasing power, savings, and investments, you can be better prepared to navigate the financial landscape. Inflation can make a significant difference in your financial planning. Understanding it is the first step towards smarter decisions. So, how do we deal with inflation? Well, the key lies in understanding and strategically planning your financial moves. It's like playing chess with your money, making sure each move you make is calculated and serves a purpose. One of the most effective strategies is investing in assets that tend to increase in value over time. Think about it. If the cost of goods and services is on the rise, doesn't it make sense to put your money into something that's also growing in value? This could be real estate, stocks, or commodities like gold. Let's consider real estate. The value of properties generally rises over time. So, by investing in property, you're essentially owning a piece of an ever-growing pie. And what about stocks? Well, companies tend to increase their prices to keep up with inflation. When they do this, their profits may increase, and so can the value of their stocks. Now let's talk about commodities. Gold, for instance, has been a reliable store of value for thousands of years. When the price level goes up, the price of gold often goes up too. So it can serve as a hedge against inflation. But here's the thing. These strategies require financial literacy. It's crucial to understand how these different assets work and the risks involved before diving in. It's about equipping yourself with the right knowledge and making informed decisions. Remember, inflation is like the tide. It's a natural economic phenomenon that's always there. You can't stop it, but you can learn to swim with it. That's where financial planning comes in. It's about setting clear goals and mapping out how you'll get there. It's about saving, investing, and making sure your money is working for you, not against you. So start today. Educate yourself about different investment options. Create a financial plan and stick to it. Inflation may be a constant, but it doesn't have to be a threat. Inflation is a fact of life, but with understanding and planning, you can minimize its impact on your wallet.